I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the News du Jour, a calmer space to consume the news. Today I have a bunch of mini stories for us to go over here at the top, and then from time to time there'll be a topic that has kind of been running in the background that I've been waiting to talk about more in depth. And today was just a super slow news day, so we're going to jump into our tension with China and the possibility of war with China. And the rest of the episode after the mini stories will be completely about that, so we can really take a deep dive and learn everything we need to know and be aware about, because there's been a bunch of little things going on. So anywho, without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into our mini stories. First up for our mini stories, storms across the U.S. have worsened and the death count is now up to 8 people. 370,000 households, though, are still without power. And with these weather events happening all the time these days, something I thought would be helpful is to break down what the different weather terms really mean. Now, it's important to take note that the threshold for meeting these different terms is different in different areas of the country, but here's what they mean in general. So we're going to go over advisory versus watch versus warning. So they can sound interchangeable, but a weather advisory means like a slight inconvenience. Like, just so you know, there's going to be a storm happening, but you're probably fine. A weather watch means it's going to be bad. Prep is needed, like go to the grocery store, get your groceries, prepare to stay inside with your kids, and just like be ready for a storm. And lastly, a weather warning means shut your shit down, cancel everything. Deadly weather is coming or is already hitting. So this is just important to note. So if you hear weather warning, that means you got to take this seriously. Turn on your weather channel, really listen to what people are saying. And oftentimes once it gets to be that bad, it can be hard to take action because you're really in the middle of it. So, when there's a weather watch, listen to what's being said. And that way, if it turns into a warning, you know what you need to do. Anywho, I hope that's helpful for you guys. Another weather-related tidbit, the groundhog saw his shadow, so it's expected that we will have 6 more weeks of winter. And lastly, in our mini stories, Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be facing a wrongful death lawsuit. This was kind of pending and delayed for a while, but it's back on, and we will keep you posted with any progress there. So today we are actually going to be doing this deep dive into one specific subject because I could really go long on this, and honestly, we need to. We need to discuss the potential for war with China. So this past week, a U.S. general made a pretty bold statement, and it was kind of cold water going down my spine for me personally. He said that his gut told him that the U.S. would be at war with China by 2025. And I'm paraphrasing there, but it was chilling to hear that because, you don't think of things as being that bad, but this is a U.S. general making this statement. So you have to take it seriously. And since then, just yesterday, we saw what experts believe to be a Chinese spy balloon, question mark. I don't know what that means. I've tried to research that a little bit, but at the point that I'm recording this, I don't have any pictures of what that looks like. But they have spotted this Chinese spy balloon, quote unquote, over the northern United States, specifically over Montana. It kind of came down through Canada and crossed the border over the US. And according to Pentagon officials, the US is actually considering literally shooting this down out of the sky. Whoa, that is a lot for 1 week, between the comments from the general and the spy balloon and maybe shooting it down. I mean, it's just a lot of tension. So you might be asking yourself, why? Why all this tension? Why would we be at war with China? Like, I know there's a lot of tension between the two of us, but what is actually meriting war? There's a ton of reasons, although, whether one could argue they merit war is kind of up for debate. But the reasons that we have tension with them really span both political parties as well. So Republicans, especially Donald Trump, you probably heard him talking about China during his presidency. They have concerns about our economic relationship with China and see China as exploiting the US and having way too much control over our economics. Democrats, on the other hand, they are probably more preoccupied when it comes to China's human rights abuses, from how it treats its workers to essentially ethnic cleansing going on in the Tibetan and Uyghur communities. So all of this is a problem. They also use apps like TikTok to gather vast amounts of data about US citizens. We also have evidence that their country is spying on ours, which we had that evidence long before this spy balloon popped up. So there's all of that. And on top of all of that, there's China's cozy relationship with Vladimir Putin. I mean, that is just alarming. So there's any number of reasons to have conflict or tension, but do any of these really merit military action? Well, Taiwan is really central to this discussion on military action. And they are technically a democracy, but the people there generally consider themselves to be a separate culture and country from China, and yet China claims them as part of their country. So there's always been that tension for a long time, and the US tends to insert itself trying to defend a fellow democracy. But that ends up putting us in the middle of a conflict that's not our own. And should China invade Taiwan at this point, it would be seen as provoking the US and our allies, which is why the US just recently has begun reaching out to our allies in that area to strengthen those relationships and request to put troops in places where we haven't had troops, as they may be needed should shit hit the fan. And the US and the Philippines, which actually have the oldest allyship in Asia, their new president is totally into this relationship, unlike the previous president. And DC and Manila made a joint statement on Wednesday saying that they will be beefing up US military presence in the Philippines. Why? Again, to be prepared in case of military conflict with China. Many might argue that with the war going on in Ukraine and China's ties to Russia and the US's relationship with Ukraine, that this would begin to look a lot like a World War III. And that is why we hear the Australian Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong calling for all nations globally to do everything they can to prevent this conflict and to tone down the rhetoric, calm down all this tension. Things are getting more and more heated by the day, and it's just unnecessary in certain respects. Many people have also accused the US of warmongering, quote unquote, and essentially inserting ourselves into a conflict that's not our own and using rhetoric that will escalate the matter. So to circle back to where we started with all of this, the statement made by a 4-star general is exactly the type of rhetoric that people are concerned about world over. But as he explained, this comment is made based on the fact that China is beefing up their military capacity. And he feels that they are on track to have the tools they need to invade Taiwan by 2025. So he feels that this is an educated guess, nothing more. Now, does saying something like that raise tensions? Absolutely. Does it help to keep things realistic for the American people, though? Probably. Other experts are putting up a timeline that looks more like 2027, 2029. But a number of experts on this are saying, look, it's imminent and we need to be prepared. Are they right? We'll just have to wait and see and hope to God that they're wrong. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "You are accountable for your actions, your decisions, and your life. No one else but you." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review or shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us be able to keep creating the news du jour. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfree media. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram and just sugarfree media, all one word, on TikTok. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from Oklahoma.